everybody. He's Mike. She's Carol. I'm Greg. No, wait a minute. She's Jan. He's Bobby. I'm Peter. No, that ain't it either. This ain't the Brady Bunch. It's Vikings Report. Drew and Ted. Drewster, how are you?
Woohoo! Episode 50, Ted. We got something a bit better than the Brady Bunch. Let's play our thing. Yeah, let's try our little thing, little Brady Bunch thing.
Let's go.
Here's the story of a man named Ziggy who was looking for a GM of his own. He has 8 folks that he'll talk to. Right now, he's all alone.
One day, Zig will pick a brand new GM, and it might be on nothing but a hunch. The new GM had better win Lombardies instead of our perpetual dick punch. The GM Bunch. The GM Bunch. That's the way they became the GM Bunch. Hey, everybody, welcome to Vikings Report. How's it going, Drewster?
How's that for an intro? Different? Not bad at all. Brady Bunch, Brady Bunch, Brady Bunch. Any favorite episode you had, Ted, before we get going with all our Viking news?
Yeah, the one in Hawaii where they had the little cursed doll that they couldn't get rid of.
Then, while at the construction site, Bobby finds a small idol that was unearthed by one of the workmen. Bobby is unaware that according to ancient island superstition, the idol is taboo and brings bad luck to those who touch it.
Joe Namath was on there.
Marcia got hit in the nose like that episode.
Yeah.
Or Mom always said, don't play ball in the house. Remember that one?
Yeah.
They broke the lamp. I had to glue it back together. And they always ended with some kind of positive note, though, you know?
Yeah, they did. Most harmonious step family in history. Sorry, I don't buy it. Don't buy it.
There's a lot going on behind closed doors with the Brady Bunch. What do we got going for tonight, Ted, besides me saying, Ted, I'm cooler than you are. So why don't you fix your little GM problems and light this candle?
He's right. Light this candle.
Yes. Resume the countdown.
All right, I'm cooler than you are. Why don't you fix your little problems and light this candle?
He's right. Let's light this candle.
He surely is. Light the candle.
Yes. Resume the countdown.
Toonces, how are you this evening?
I'm good. I have a favorite Brady Bunch episode.
What you got?
So, I don't remember who it was. It was Greg, I think. He was mad at Bobby, or Peter was mad at somebody, and he's all angry, and Mike comes up and he has to like separate him. Peter goes, "You low down, buttering up, conniving," and then Mike stops and goes, "Now, Bobby," or
no, he said, "No, that'll do, Bob."
Oh, that's what he said. That's right.
That was all supposed to be a harsh burn back then. Low down, buttering up, conniving.
And so you go from the Brady Bunch to like the Gallaghers.
Debbie stole a baby. We have to figure out how to return it.
There you go. That's full circle right there.
All right. Like Drew said, we got a really big show. It's GM Palooza, if you couldn't tell by the opening goofy, idiotic theme song we tried to pull off.
What the hell is wrong with you people?
That's pretty cool, man.
Yeah. The Vikings are in the process of interviewing or have interviewed 8 GMs. We've got some head coaching names. We're going to spend most of this episode talking about the GMs. We'll hit on the coaches a little bit. They're going to do some preliminary interviews, but I don't think they're going to get serious with the head coach until the GM is hired. We got a big announcement. We had so much fun doing live watch parties. Christopher Gates will be joining us. We're going to do a live watch party during the Chiefs and the Bills playoff game tomorrow afternoon. I think it comes on at 3:30 hippie time, 5:30 God's time, 6:30 on the East Coast. We'll be on a little bit early, maybe about half hour. We'll talk if there's any pertinent Vikings news. If they announce a GM, we'll talk about that. If they've narrowed it down to a couple folks, we'll talk about that. The flip side of that is we will not have a studio show next week. So we're going to do the live show on Sunday. There will not be a studio show next Saturday. However, if the Minnesota Vikings have not hired a GM by the time we do our live watch party tomorrow, if they hire one between tomorrow and next Saturday, we will come on and do another live episode. It'll probably be kind of abbreviated. We'll talk about the new GM and kind of what we're expecting and all that kind of stuff. So no studio show next Saturday, but we will do a live show. if in fact the Vikings name a GM or a head coach or maybe both. Who knows? We'll see what's going on.
It's always a hoot to get together and watch football with Christopher Gates, man.
It is. and you know, we were kind of talking about this. Well, do we want to do this? It's not a Vikings game, but man, I think it'll be fun because we are so engrossed in what the Vikings are doing that we're always paying attention. We could just kind of shoot the breeze a little bit more and be casual. We look up, oh, hey, there's a big play. Cool, whatever. Where the Vikings game, we were always kind of intently watching the game. And, oh, by the way, we will be taking calls for the first time. We're going to have some folks call in, join us for a little bit, ask a couple questions.
Morons. I can't take it. Put him on hold. Take it. No, that's what he gets. And I hope Robbie Anderson doesn't play. I hope he doesn't play.
And we're going to see how the free therapy line goes for the first time during a playoff game that the Vikings are not participating in.
Now you're getting off into the crazy area, Ted. People calling the show. We're going to have live callers calling in. Bills and Chiefs. This could be a great game, Ted.
So for tonight, though, we're going to go over all the 8 GM candidates. We're going to talk a little bit about the coaches that have been interviewed. And again, not a whole lot. Then we've got some trivia, and then we'll get out of here. To get right into it, Drewster, the Minnesota Vikings are looking to replace former general manager Rick Spielman. No hard feelings at all, but if you live near the Chanhassen Goodwill, you may be able to go get all of Rick Spielman's Vikings gear because he dropped all his Vikings gear off at the Chanhassen Goodwill, said, I don't want any of it. People were taking pictures of it with the name Spielman on the tag in the back. He dropped it off at the Chanhassen, Minnesota Goodwill. Dropped it all off. Probably had a pickup truck full.
At the Goodwill!
At the Goodwill. Some slightly used Rick Spielman Minnesota Vikings gear. Go get you some.
Ah, get some, baby! Get some! Get some! Get some!
You might end up on IR, but go get yourself some.
As we know, Spielman's out. The Vikings are starting to conduct job interviews for his eventual replacement. Right now, there are 8 folks that have been asked to be interviewed by the Minnesota Vikings. They are Monty Ossenfort, the Tennessee Director of Player Personnel. Been there for 2 years. Prior to that, he was with the New England Patriots for like 15 years. John Spytek, the Tampa Bay Vice President of Player Personnel. He's been with Tampa Bay for 3 years. Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah, the Cleveland Vice President of Football Operations, the last 2 years. And for the 6 years prior to that, he was in the San Francisco 49ers organization in various roles. Catherine Rach, the Philadelphia Eagles Vice President of Football Operations for the last 2 years. Prior to that, she was in the Canadian Football League as an executive in the front office of Montreal Alouettes and
Toronto Argonauts.
That's it, Toronto Argonauts. Thank you. Ryan Poles, the Executive Director of Player Personnel for the Kansas City Chiefs. Been with the Chiefs for like 13 years, been there forever. So he was there when Andy Reid came and helped build that team into what they are today. Brandon Brown, the Philadelphia Director of Player Personnel for the last 4 years, from 2017 to 21. Elliot Wolf, who is now a Pats consultant, but he was the Cleveland Assistant GM in 2018 and 19. And he had 18 seasons before that with the Green Bay Packers. And then finally, last but certainly not least, Glenn Cook, the Cleveland Browns Vice President of Player Personnel for the last 4 seasons, 2018 to 2021. Now, as of this broadcast, Ossenfort, Spytek, Adolfo-Mensah, Rach, and Brandon Brown have been interviewed. By the time this show airs, they might have the other 3 done. I know they're looking to get them all done this week. Are you happy with the list?
Yes, I'm happy with the list because if you look over the qualifications, a lot of them vary from what each person knows. A couple of these guys are just heavy into scouting. We'll go over that, but I am happy with the list.
Last week, you and I had identified a couple guys that did not make this list. And if you watch social media and interact on Facebook and on Twitter, there are a lot of people butthurt that their person might not be on that list.
We're pretty butthurt about it.
Really?
That's how fans react, though. If it's not their person, they think there's a problem with the other guy.
Let me caution that just because your person isn't on the list doesn't necessarily mean it's the wrong person, whoever they pick. I think everybody deserves a look at their resume. I would say just looking at these people from what I know, obviously we are not in the room when they're interviewing these candidates, but they are all qualified. They all seem like very qualified people. So why don't we break this down and we'll go back up to the top with Monty. Is that an ocelot?
What the hell was that?
Ugh, my stupid ocelot.
I've never seen an ocelot.
Awesome.
Before we get started, thanks everybody for joining in for episode 50, and congratulations, Ted, on episode 50. It's been a hell of a journey, and hopefully we can get 50 more in. But I want to say that you've done a great job with this show and Toonces. You guys definitely carry the show. I don't even know why my slouchy ass is here, but I'm going to ride the wind. I'm riding it to the end.
Don't be afraid to ride the lightning.
No! No! In the face! In the face! No!
Toonces just cut his camera off. You and I'll do the rest of the show then.
Like,
I'm kidding.
Michael Anthony, what do you want me to play? Eddie, just play the low E. Just play the low E, bro. Hey, where'd I go? Hello? Can I get back? Hello?
Okay, bring him back.
I don't know if I know how to bring him back.
What'd you do?
You're an incredible slouch.
Thank you, Ted. Like the guy that used to be on Howard Stern.
Yeah.
And Howard Stern says, hey, if it's any consolation, if I look like you, I'd drink too. Thanks, Howard. Okay, what do we got? What was your question?
All right, let's kind of go back and start breaking down all these candidates. We'll start with Monty Ossenfort, who has been with Tennessee the last 2 years, for the New England Patriots the 15 years before that. What do you like about him?
I like the fact that he won 4 Super Bowls with the Patriots, first off. 20 years ago, that guy was an intern for the Vikings.
Yeah, native of Laverne, Minnesota.
And he graduated a Gopher, right?
Yeah.
That certainly doesn't hurt that he went to the University of Minnesota, right? I mean, Monty is heavy into the scouting part of it, which is, I think the Vikings are deliberately looking at the scouting end of it because I think they want to handle this draft differently.
I think so too, yeah.
And Monty and Brandon Brown are heavy rooted in scouting, as we'll get to him later. But I like that about both those guys, especially Monty. He's got a lot of experience, a lot of football experience. I like what he brings to the table with the scouting, Ted.
Here's 2 things that stand out with me. When he was with the Patriots, and the one thing I have always admired about the Patriots as a professional football organization is they have an almost ruthless mentality in maintaining their roster and salary cap flexibility.
Luca Brazzi held a gun to his head, and my father assured him that either his brains or his signature would be on the contract.
It seems like every other year, the Patriots get rid of a guy that you don't think they're going to get rid of. Richard Seymour, the guy who helped them win their first Super Bowl, Teddy Bruschi, Mike Vrabel. So this guy, he understands that to maintain a competitive team in the NFL year after year after year, you have to make really hard decisions about your roster. And I would argue the last 3 or 4 years, the Minnesota Vikings delayed those hard decisions and now compounded those problems that, now you have to get rid of the guy, but instead of getting rid of, like, Kyle Rudolph, for example, 2 years ago, you got rid of him later and you had a bigger cap hit than you needed to have. And you're starting to see that with guys like Harrison Smith and Everson Griffin and Adam Thielen and what's going to happen with those guys, Anthony Barr. And so they had to rework all those deals. So I really like that. And I like in the last 2 years with Tennessee, I think the Tennessee Titans are very similar to the Vikings in a lot of ways. Very run-centric offense, a quarterback that is good, but I don't think you would consider either Ryan Tannehill an elite guy, but he's a good quarterback. I think Kirk's better than Tannehill, but I don't know you can consider Kirk elite. So the Titans have gone to the playoffs the last 2 years and with the AFC Championship last year. This year, they're the number 1 seed. And, oh, by the way, they managed to do it without Derrick Henry for over half the year. So he knows how to build a roster, and that is a very big check mark for me.
You look at Tennessee. It says a lot about Vrabel, too, kind of head coach he is.
They're a rushing team. Blitz coming. They've got it inside.
What kind of team they're putting together there, he was a big part of getting all that together. But, the bad contracts the Vikings have, I don't want to hang that on Brzezinski because I think he was just told what to do.
I don't blame that on Rob Brzezinski at all. I think Rob Brzezinski made a lot of lemonade with a bunch of lemons with the contracts, the way he's done that. So I really like Ossenfort. I don't know that he's my number 1 guy, but he's right up there. The more I looked at him and I saw his background and what he did.
I had him at number 5, and now after you talked, I'm moving him up to 2. I'm a big fan of Monty now.
The next guy is John Spytek, Tampa Bay Vice President of Player Personnel. What do you like about John Spytek?
I'm not biased, Ted. The reason I like John Spytek, as you see by this photo I'm going to throw up there right now. And there he is, chasing down the Ohio State running back. Spytek was a Wolverine, Ted. We need to go on anymore. Linebacker from 1999 to 2002, amassing 37 tackles over 4 years. How about that, Ted?
He is now off my list.
You're dead to me.
He is now number 9 of 8.
He was mostly a special teamer for the Wolverines. That's what I remember him playing as, but he played his college football for Michigan. Currently the vice president of player personnel with Tampa Bay, which is not too shabby. Heavy into scouting when he started too, Spytek was. Bounced around Detroit, Philadelphia, Cleveland, Denver. I like John Spytek.
He helped bring in guys like Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski to set up that Super Bowl roster.
He played with Brady. That was his quarterback when he was in Michigan.
Yeah. Was in the room when they drafted a guy like Antoine Winfield Jr., a guy that a lot of Vikings fans wanted to get in the 2020 draft. He also was instrumental in keeping that Super Bowl roster the Buccaneers put together last year together. I mean, re-signing guys like Leonard Fournette and bringing all 22 of the starters on offense and defense back to make a second run at it. That's very difficult to do. And that's something that's very intriguing because it's tough to build the roster, but it's even tougher to keep that roster together and keep it as productive and full of depth. And say what you want about Tampa. They've had a fair amount of injuries this year. Their depth has been able to absorb the loss of guys like Chris Godwin, for example. I think he's a pretty good candidate, too. The next guy, I'm really interested in this dude. Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, the Cleveland vice president of football operations the last 2 years, was with San Francisco in various roles, scouting, analytics. He's got, I believe it's a finance background. As an Ivy League dude, knew nothing about football, and then one day said, look, I want to get smart on football, and he did. I think you would put him on the short list of guys to be the next Vikings GM. What do you think about Mensah?
The econ background and all the financial commodities trading and all the guy's an expert when it comes to finances. I think they probably mainly brought him in to talk about how to maintain a good salary cap or the financial end of the Vikings. Out of all the guys they interviewed, he's got the most financial background thought process of any of them. I figure him and Brzezinski together will never have any salary cap problem. Does he have the football background, Ted? That's my question.
I think he does. Adofo-Mensah has maybe the most impressive list of draftees from San Francisco and Cleveland. I mean, here's some of these names. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, Donovan Peoples-Jones, your boy from Michigan, Ohio State guy Nick Bosa, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle. Now, he didn't make the selections, obviously, but he was instrumental in doing the scouting, recommending player profiles, all that kind of stuff.
All he has to do is go in with a piece of paper with those names on it, lay it on the table and say, with his big cigar, call me, babe. Wouldn't you think?
I would think.
That is damn impressive. You can almost have a team with those guys.
I think he's the favorite, but that's just me.
I think so too, because I'm queasy.
And speaking of not guys, girls, gals are now in the running for this too. And I think that's awesome for the NFL and awesome for pro sports in general. But Catherine Raich, the Philadelphia Eagles vice president of football operations the last 3 years, 19, 20, 20, and 21. Before that, she was in the CFL from 2015 to 2019 to include assistant GM spot. What do you think of Catherine Raich, Drew?
You know what jumps out to me about Catherine Raich is the fact that she practiced law like Toonces.
Yeah.
And then one day went, I want to get into football. You have to have a tremendous amount of confidence in what you're doing, transition from one to the other. What about her ascension from 2015 to where she is now? That's not much time at all.
Yeah, I would argue she might be the most inexperienced of the candidates. Do you consider her CFL background a positive or a negative in terms of being an NFL GM? Because she was an assistant GM in the CFL, and that's a big deal. I mean, running a football team is running a football team. Salary cap's different. I get all that. But it's still a lot of the same moving parts.
Well, she was director of football operations for the Alouettes, and then she became the assistant general manager for Toronto just a few years later.
Yeah.
She was with the Alouettes 15 to 17, and then assistant GM with the Argonauts 18 to 19, and then the director of football administration there. It was only 15 to 19. Then she jumps to the Eagles, becomes a player personnel coordinator, and then in 21, vice president of player personnel.
Yeah.
So this is somebody that's confident enough to keep jumping up and getting to where she wants to go. I like that.
And on a short list for an NFL GM job. That's impressive. A couple of her notable draft picks, and this is going to be brought up both with her and I believe it's Brandon Brown, who's also with the Eagles. Jalen Rieger is a name that's going to be out there if you're on the Philadelphia front office. Like a lot of people are saying, I don't want anybody from the Philadelphia front office that was associated with the Jalen Rieger pick.
Howard Roseman from Philly, who makes the final call on that stuff, was listening to some analytics guy in his ear when he took Rieger. I don't think it was necessarily Brandon Brown or Catherine or anybody else, but somebody else had his ear about the analytics. There you go. Ruined the whole thing with the analytics.
Chris Mortensen has reported more than once that neither Rach or Brown were on board with the decision to get Rieger over Jefferson. It was, like you said, it was Howie Roseman and at the time Coach Doug Peterson that said, we're going to take Rieger. They picked J.J. Arcega-Whitehead over DK Metcalf too. So
it sounds like the Eagles got a little bit of problem disconnect between their scouting department with the wide receivers in college football and guys making the decisions up front. Yeah, you don't want to be being tied to Rieger. That's like the teacher at the daycare that thought bringing a live badger for show and tell was a good idea. You don't want to be that guy that made that decision.
The next guy is Ryan Poles, Kansas City Chiefs. He's the executive director of player personnel, been with the Chiefs for 13 years. And look at what the Chiefs have done in that time. They have built a juggernaut of a football team. They've won a Super Bowl. They've gone to 2 straight. Very good chance they'll go to the Super Bowl for a 3rd year in a row. Got a tough game this weekend, but that's a good football team. They've got a good coach who drafted a good quarterback who built around him. And they did what the current NFL model is: find a good quarterback on his rookie contract, build around him, go all in, win a Super Bowl, and then try and figure it out from there. And that's what the Chiefs are doing right now.
You have a lot of smart people running the Chiefs, but Borgonzi, that cat we talked about on the last episode, and then Poles. I mean, when you're the team that is destroying the NFL as much as Kansas City is, then, the cachet seems to follow a little bit.
So from Ryan Poles, last few folks, Brandon Brown, the Philadelphia director of player personnel, 2017 to 2021. Again, kind of light on the experience compared to some of these other guys. Very similar background in terms of players drafted that Catherine Rach has with the Philadelphia Eagles. What are your thoughts on Brown?
Another heavy guy into scouting. Go back to Boston College, 2013. He was like the guru for recruiting. It's a people person. That means that guy works really well with people. I think he's big into the scouting end of it, and that's why they're talking to him. The Vikings want to start hitting on some of these drafts.
Yeah.
When it comes to scouting players, Ted, I think Brandon Brown is probably on the top of the heap over any of them. Plus, he also earned the great Juris Doctorate from the Barry University Law School.
Really?
You know the Juris document that you won the Juris Doctorate, didn't you? Oh, wait, that was the jury doctorate for appearing in front of the most juries.
How do your clients plead?
My clients are caught completely by surprise.
No, he won the Juris Doctorate at the Barry University Law School. That cannot be overlooked.
Is his degree. That's his law degree.
Like I said, he got a PhD, the Juris Doctorate.
He's Brandon Brown, Esquire.
The Juris Doctorate. I'd have won that if I'd have went to college.
I could tell. Yeah. I object. 2 folks left. Glenn Cook, the Cleveland vice president of player personnel from 2018 to 2021. And he's got a pretty impressive list of players. When he got to Cleveland, they brought in guys like Baker Mayfield, Nick Chubb, and got the Browns back to the playoffs last year after, they'd only been there once since the team was reconstituted. Denzel Ward, Grant Delpit, Greg Newsome, again, Owosu Koromoa. So he's been there for the Cleveland Browns revival, which is something you have to think about if you're a Vikings fan, because there may be a year or two where the wins drop as this roster sort of gets overhauled and refreshed.
Seems like Cleveland and Philly have a lot of ties to where we're going with this, what the Vikings are trying to do here.
Yeah. And then finally, the last guy is Elliott Wolf. You know why his name might sound so familiar? He's Ron Wolf's son. Ron Wolf, the now legendary general manager for the Green Bay Packers. He's the guy that built the Packers in the 90s, made the trade for Brett Favre, got Reggie White in on free agency, and started that whole run that the Packers have been on for many of your adult lives for some of you that watch this show.
Made the trade for Brett Favre. What was the big deal about that?
Fuck, Jordan, look at his face. It's beautiful.
So Elliott Wolf spent 18 seasons at Green Bay. One thing that kind of made me pause, there's been so much nepotism with the Vikings, with Zimmer's son on staff and Norv Turner's son on staff and Andre Patterson's kid on staff and Gary Kubiak's kid. I'm kind of done with that. But Wolf has sort of proven himself, I guess, if you will. I mean, he did 18 years in the Green Bay front office. He was the assistant GM in Cleveland in 2018 and 2019. And now he's a New England Patriots consultant. So he's been around winning football teams almost his entire career. So he knows what needs to be done in terms of building a winner. So I'm not so concerned with the nepotism thing that I kind of was when I first heard the name Wolf. And I'm like, oh, is he Ron Wolf's kid? And all that kind of stuff.
Again, is there their connection with the Hackett, Nathaniel Hackett? They're talking to Hackett. Could they have Wolf come in with Hackett because they're already familiar? Does that familiarity, does that even matter or not?
I think it does. We talked about relationships earlier. When you got a buddy down there, it doesn't hurt. If one of these 8 people that they hire, they're going to have an input on who the coach is. And so far, the Minnesota Vikings have interviewed the following individuals. You mentioned Nathaniel Hackett, the offensive coordinator for Green Bay. Kellen Moore, the Dallas Cowboys offensive coordinator. Dan Quinn, the Dallas Cowboys defensive coordinator. Todd Bowles, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defensive coordinator. And Raheem Morris, the Los Angeles Rams defensive coordinator, who was also the head coach on an interim basis for the Atlanta Falcons. And before that, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You may remember Raheem Morris. He took an 0-5 Falcons team, brought him into US Bank Stadium last year and absolutely spanked the Minnesota Vikings. Now, of all these guys named, we can talk about relationships. You got Todd Bowles at Tampa Bay, goes back to John Spytek. You got Hackett that you mentioned with Wolf. The thing about the NFL is it's a small community. It's a small fraternity.
Sure.
You either know the guy or you work with somebody who knows the guy. So your reputation precedes yourself. I am sure a lot of those personal relationships are going into it. I don't know that this is definitely the final list either. There's some other coaches out there, and whoever the GM is, they could say, I want to interview this guy. Like Doug Peterson, for example, his name's out there. And you got the 2 folks from the front office in Philly. I think that personal relationship is going to influence in some ways, either negatively or positively. It could be negatively too. But no, I think you're definitely onto something with relationships. Whoever the GM and the head coach are, they have got to lead as one. They have got to be on the same page.
He ain't lying.
You're right, Ted. They have to be on the same page because what we just witnessed was 2 guys not on the same page.
No, not these last 4 years.
Can the Wilfs do it, though? Are they smart enough to put that system together?
There are good names on both of these lists. I'm going to put faith and belief that they will. Because I'm 54 and I don't have a choice.
Hope is a good thing, maybe the best of things, and no good thing ever dies.
That pretty much does it for our GM talk. We're going to take a quick commercial break.
Marcia, what happened?
Peter hit me in the nose with a football. I can't go to the dance like this.
Well, I'm sure it was an accident, sweetheart.
An eye for an eye. That's what Dad always says.
I never said that, honey.
Shut up! Time to teach Peter a lesson.
Marcia, eat a Snickers.
Why?
You get a little hostile when you're hungry. Better? Better.
Marcia.
Jan, this isn't about you.
It never is.
Hi. Great. Yeah, I've never had a corporate job before, I've always just worked for my dad.
And here we are.
This is it? Oh, this is my first cubicle. Oh, thank you.
I don't know.
No, put it up. Toosh. You gotta blow it up. All right. Toosh. Hi, I'm Andy. I'm the new guy. Me again. Hi. Hey, do you have the IP address for the printer? I need to print my work start forms.
Sorry, I don't know it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm just gonna look it up real quick, okay? Francis, you sly dog. Is it your birthday?
Well, Wednesday.
Why didn't you tell me?
I don't know who you are.
I'm Andy, the new guy.
All right, that puts a wrap on episode 50 of the GM Bunch. Again, remember, tomorrow we'll be on about a half hour before the Bills-Chiefs game. We'll talk Viking stuff. We'll walk through the playoff game. And then, there'll be no studio show next week at all, but we'll do another live show between Sunday and whenever if they announce a GM and or head coach. I think that takes care of all that stuff. Drew, why don't you take us home?
Thank you for joining us for episode 50. We got a ton of stuff ahead of us over the next 3 months. A lot of stuff. We got games. We're throwing it all at you. But thank you for being here tonight. And say good night, Ted.
Good night, Ted.